On the 28th of July, 2025, while President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. prepared to deliver his fourth State of the Nation address, the streets of Quezon City told a very different story. Thousands of Filipinos, under the banner of groups like Bagong Alyansang Makabayan, or Bayan, marched along Commonwealth Avenue in what they called the Sona ng Paniningil, or the Sona of accountability. This was not a celebration. It was, honestly, a reckoning. The air was thick, not so much with anticipation for political promises, but with the palpable frustration of a populace weary from battling relentless floods, soaring prices of basic goods, and a government they felt had turned its back on their daily struggles. It was a vivid tableau of dissent, a stark counter-narrative to the polished speech set to be delivered inside the halls of power. The demonstration was a massive undertaking, with organizers estimating a crowd of between 10,000 and 15,000 people. They came from all walks of life: students, laborers, farmers, and the urban poor, everyone converging to voice a unified message of discontent. The government's response was just as formidable. The Philippine National Police deployed over 16,000 personnel across Metro Manila, declaring a full alert and establishing command centers to monitor the situation. They spoke of a policy of maximum tolerance, a phrase that, let's be honest, often sits uneasily with protesters who have experienced confrontations in the past. The city itself was transformed for the day. Traffic rerouted, classes suspended, and even a liquor ban enforced, all in an effort to manage the massive river of people demanding to be heard. For ordinary citizens caught in the middle, the day was a mixture of hope and hardship. Many expressed their frustrations with economic realities that the Sona often glosses over. They spoke of decreased incomes, the crushing weight of high fuel prices, and the persistent dream of affordable rice, a direct reference to the president's unfulfilled campaign promise of 20 pesos per kilo. Their hopes were simple yet profound. They wanted concrete action on the price of essential commodities, effective solutions to the perennial flooding that devastated their homes and livelihoods, and a government that genuinely listened to their pleas rather than just delivering another well-rehearsed speech filled with statistics that didn't reflect their lived experiences. This annual protest is more than just a gathering, it's become a tradition of political expression in the Philippines. It serves as a public performance review of the president, held right outside the very building where the official address is given. It's a powerful reminder that democracy is not confined to the ballot box, but is, in fact, actively practiced on the streets. The Sona ng Paniningil was a clear declaration that the people were keeping score. They were demanding accountability not only for the current administration's perceived failings, but also for the lingering issues and alleged crimes of the past, ensuring that the nation's memory remained sharp and its demand for justice unyielding. At the heart of the protest's political theater were two towering, grotesque effigies designed to capture the public's anger in monstrous form. The first was ZomBBM, a clever and biting play on the president's initials and the concept of a zombie. This figure represented President Marcos Jr. as a reanimated political corpse, an undead entity shambling through his presidency without genuine life or a will of its own. One striking version of the effigy was crafted to be double cara, or two-faced, a direct commentary on what protesters saw as a regime built on deception and broken promises. This symbol powerfully conveyed their belief that the administration presented one face to the public while concealing a more sinister reality of puppetry and neglect. Another interpretation of the ZomBBM effigy featured the likeness of former US President Donald Trump looming behind Marcos, physically manipulating him like a puppet. This was a pointed critique of what activists condemned as the disastrous US Marcos regime, portraying the president not as a sovereign leader, but as a subordinate serving foreign interests. This imagery was particularly resonant following a recent official meeting between the two leaders, which protesters believed solidified the Philippines' subservient role. The zombie puppet hybrid was a multi-layered insult, suggesting a leader who was not only politically lifeless and deceptive, but also controlled by external forces, completely detached from the sovereign will of the Filipino people he was meant to serve. The second effigy was equally macabre and symbolic, the Sara-nanggal. This creation merged the name of Vice President Sara Duterte with the manananggal, a fearsome creature from Philippine folklore. The manananggal is a terrifying monster that can sever its upper torso from its lower half to fly at night and prey on victims. The effigy depicted the vice president in this horrifying, bisected form. The symbolism was stark and deliberate. The creature's separation of its body parts was used to represent a schism in governance and a betrayal of public trust, portraying the vice president as a monstrous figure preying on the nation itself. The most damning detail of the Sara-nanggal was its lower half. Instead of entrails, it was depicted spilling out a massive hoard of cash, directly alluding to the serious allegations of graft and misuse of public funds that had dogged the vice president. This visual accusation was a powerful dramatization of the impeachment charges she had recently faced concerning confidential funds. By transforming her into a mythical monster known for its grotesque nature, the protesters were not just criticizing a politician, they were casting her as a folkloric evil, a creature that feasted on the nation's wealth while the people suffered, making their condemnation both visceral and unforgettable. The burning of the ZomBBM and Sara-nanggal effigies was the dramatic climax of the day's protest. This act, far from being simple vandalism, is a deeply ingrained tradition in Filipino activism, a form of political street theater and symbolic speech. Organizers, like Bayan President Renato Reyes, staunchly defend effigy burning as a legitimate and protected form of free expression. They argue that it is a powerful, non-violent way to articulate collective outrage and condemnation when official channels for dialogue and accountability seem closed or ineffective. The flames are not meant to incite violence, but to symbolize the burning away of corruption, injustice, and failed governance, a cathartic release for public anger. The police often issue warnings ahead of Sona protests, cautioning that the act of burning effigies could be a violation of environmental laws or ordinances against open fires. However, activists are quick to point out the hypocrisy of such threats, noting the minimal environmental impact compared to systemic issues. More importantly, they highlight legal precedent. Reyes himself noted that all previous cases filed against protesters for burning effigies have been dismissed by the courts. This history has emboldened activists, reinforcing their belief that this symbolic act falls squarely under the constitutional protection of free speech, a right they are determined to exercise despite intimidation. The choice of effigies is a meticulous process, designed to distill complex political issues into a single resonant image that can be easily understood by the public and amplified by the media. The ZomBBM and Sara-nanggal were not random monsters, they were carefully chosen symbols. The zombie represents a soulless, mindless state, while the manananggal embodies a duplicitous evil that preys on the vulnerable. These figures from popular culture and folklore create an immediate connection with the people, translating abstract concepts like foreign puppetry and alleged corruption into tangible, monstrous forms that evoke a shared cultural understanding and a collective sense of dread and anger. Ultimately, the burning is a message of defiance. It is a visual declaration that the people will not be silenced, and that they hold the power to symbolically dismantle the figures they see as oppressing them. In a political landscape where accountability can be elusive, the fire serves as a form of people's justice. It's a raw, dramatic, and unapologetic statement that while the powerful may deliver speeches from protected podiums, the people on the streets have their own rituals for passing judgment. The rising smoke carries with it their demands for change, a signal of their unwavering resolve to continue the fight for a more just and equitable society. Beyond the monstrous effigies and political slogans, the protest was fueled by the very real and immediate struggles of the Filipino people. The core issues that drove thousands to the streets were fundamental to their survival. They condemned the government's failure to address the severe national flooding crisis, which repeatedly submerged communities and destroyed livelihoods, leaving families to fend for themselves. They raged against the blocking of a crucial wage hike bill, a measure that could have provided much-needed relief to workers struggling to keep up with the relentless increase in the cost of living. The protest was, in essence, the people's own State of the Nation address, delivered not with rhetoric but with raw, unfiltered truth from the ground. A significant catalyst for the protest's focus on accountability was the recent and highly contentious impeachment saga of Vice President Sara Duterte. In February 2025, the House of Representatives had impeached her on serious charges, including graft and the misuse of confidential funds. However, after months of political maneuvering, the Senate remanded the case back to the House, and the Supreme Court ultimately declared the impeachment unconstitutional. For the protesters, this legal labyrinth felt like a deliberate evasion of justice. Their demand for her ouster was a cry against an impunity that allowed powerful officials to escape scrutiny, making the Sara-nanggal effigy a symbol of justice denied. This call for accountability extended beyond the current vice president. Protesters also loudly demanded the conviction of former President Rodrigo Duterte at the International Criminal Court for the bloody war on drugs conducted during his term. This dual focus on both Dutertes, alongside the critique of President Marcos Jr., painted a picture of a populace fighting against what they see as a continuum of corrupt and tyrannical rule. They were not just protesting the actions of one administration, but challenging a political culture that they believe perpetuates injustice and protects the powerful at the expense of the people, especially the poor and marginalized. In the end, the main message of the 2025 Sona protest was one of profound and unwavering resistance. The burning of ZomBBM and Sara-nanggal was not merely an act of anger but a powerful assertion of democratic voice. It was a message to the ruling elite that the people are watching, they are remembering, and they will not be pacified by empty promises or political theater inside a Congress hall. The protest signified that true power resides not in the hands of those who deliver speeches, but in the collective will of a people who refuse to be forgotten, who demand accountability, and who will continue to light the fires of dissent until their calls for justice and genuine change are finally answered.